And we are going to learn about a new topic in Latin, and one that's very useful. It's personal pronouns. You may know them better as I, you, he, she, it, we, they, or their accusative direct object forms me, you, them, him, and us. And for this particular lesson, we're going to focus on the first and second person. So the I, me, we, us, and you. Um, but let's dive into it. And let's start by just looking at some examples, which give us a taste of all the kind of fun things we can do with these terms in Latin, and also about how they're kind of intuitive. All right, so here we have a couple of quotes and quotation marks, a couple comments. See if you can deduce their meaning, even though we haven't gone over this topic specifically yet. First off, we have Marcus inquit Helena. So Marcus saying something to Helena. Helena respondet. Helena responds. We have Dido inquit Troyanis. Dido says something Troyanis to the Trojans. Dative. Dido says something to the Trojans. And then we just have a quote that might be useful to say to your friends. All right, so keep that in mind while you try and translate these lines here on your own. Pause the video, and then we'll move on. Amas ne me. That ne turns this amas me into a question. So rather than saying amas, you love me, it's do you love me? Marcus to Helena, a little Marcus, Helena, Maria story fan fiction. Please permit me to indulge here. And then Helena responded, Minime, te tantum amas. Very dramatic, tantum here meaning only. And she responds, no. Amas, you only, tantum amas, you only love yourself. We'll see. I don't know. This isn't actually based off of the real storyline. You have to wait and find out what actually happens. Okay, Dido inquit Troyanis. Dido says to the Trojans, what might she say to them? Cur me relinquitis. Why do you all abandon me? Very sad story that we read last class. Cur me relinquitis. Dabam multa dona vobis. Dabam, subject, I was giving, multa dona, many gifts, vobis, to you, many gifts to y'all, plural of you. And then finally, debes, you ought, you should, ambulare, walk, nobis cum. And this is an interesting version of cum plus the ablative accompaniment, right? We take the cum and we actually stick it onto the end of these personal pronouns, me cum, te cum, vobis cum, and in order to do the ablative accompaniment. So you ought to walk with us. All right, now let's just actually look at these. Now that we've gotten kind of a taste of what they look like, you see that me, te, similar Spanish, right? Te amo, me gusta, and we've seen in other languages, and that's because they come straight from Latin. So, first person pronoun. Ego. Mei, mihi, me, nos, nostri, nobis, nos, nobis. So, ego, first person pronoun, we know is I. So, me, genitive, of me. Mihi, to me. Me, me. Ablative, by or with me, depending on what prepositions you stick with it. Nos, we, of us, to us, us, for the accusative, and by or with us, depending on what ablatives we stick with it. All right, just looking at this real quick, some things might jump out to us. We see an I at the ending of the genitive for both ego and nos in the singular and the plural, and that might help tip us off when we think of like amicus, amici. We've seen that I in the genitive before. We see an OS here, maybe. We think, oh, we've seen OS in the accusative plural before. And I like to think of the bises as similar to, or at least a little bit reminiscent to like ibus, like regibus, right? To the kings, for the kings. That third declension ending, right? So there's some things that we're a little bit familiar with. It's easy to remember that me is the accusative because it's just like the accusative version of I in English, me. All a couple tips to keep in mind. Let's take a look at the second person now. All right, so you, of you, to or for you, by or with you, y'all, right, of y'all, to or for y'all, by or with y'all. So now keeping this in mind, we can see, in English we only really have you. I mean, we use y'all to distinguish, but frequently we'll use you for both the singular and plural. So that's a change between Latin and English. Two forms of you. Two forms of you. And the other thing, though, mainly that we want to see here is a side-by-side comparison with the first-person pronoun. Because what we're going to see, oopsie-daisy, what we're going to see is that, the forms are really similar, right? For I versus you, for a lot of these, the main difference is just we're switching out an M for a T, right? It's mihi, not and tibi, so there's a slight change there, but you can see that similarity in the dative. And then me, te. And then for nos, we're really, in most of the cases, except for the gender plural, we're just switching the N to a V. So what you want to do is you want to come up with a way to make sure you remember that N is we and the V is you. And the way I like to do that is that V essentially looks like the top half of a Y, right? You can see how wos, when you were to extend this line farther, would more naturally become you than nos would over time in writing styles. So that's one way I like to distinguish. So when I see wos, I think, I can make that a you real quickly. So that must be the plural, second person plural. And with nos, you remember, well, it's not a V, so it can make that into a Y very easily. And you can remember, that must be the first person then, we or us. All right, so maybe that can help keeping those in line. But the best way really to study this is actually going to be one of those ones where you just want to say it aloud to yourself, ego mei mihi meme, ego mei mihi meme, ego mei mihi meme. And then try and write it down a few times from memory, check your work against the book, and just grow some familiarity with the forms through that fashion, right? All right, so before we move on, just to close, I want to give you a little help with the exercise I asked you to do tonight because it's a little bit tricky. The first three sentences are here. What we want to look at is we want to say, what we're going to do is we're going to find where the personal pronoun is in the sentence. So in this case, it's nos, right? And we're going to actually make it singular while keeping the case the same. So one thing to decide is this nominative or accusative? How can I check? I go to credunt. I see that's not a mus ending. So it must be accusative. So I know to make it the accusative of ego. Mei, mihi, meme. So nos becomes me. Keep esse the same. Hostes was being connected to nos with esse, so we know that they have to be the same number. So I'm actually going to change this now to accusative singular, and I can keep credunt the same. And so rather than they believe that we are enemies, indirect statement, right? Accusative subject, rather than they believe that we are enemies, it's they believe that I am an enemy. Okay? So why don't you pause the video and try and do that with the next sentence, and I'll come help you. All right, so we notice that the te is the word, so we need to make it accusative plural. So you becomes y'all. Tempestatem can remain the same because there's no esse linking these two accusatives together. But when we do see two accusatives together, right, and neither of them are adjectives, we're going to probably assume, maybe this is accusative subject and this is accusative direct object, which means I'm expecting an infinitive, which we have. Conspicere, because this is also going to be indirect statement. Cupiebam. So y'all, I was desiring that y'all see or observe the storm. All right, so this might be a little bit tricky, but one of the things you can do, right, is as you go to each of these, make sure you highlight the form, and you can go back or look up on page, this is all these forms on the language fact page that you're expected to read as well for tonight, page 194 of your textbook. I'll have these forms, so you can use that to help guide you as well. But an even better way would be to try and study these forms first and then go back and finish this exercise, okay? So good luck. The rest of the sentences I think are a little bit easier than these first two, which are always tricky with that indirect statement. Double sentence, reporting verb, accusative subject, infinitive. But the others get a little bit easier. And I'll see you in class on Thursday. Finally. It feels like it's been forever since we've been in class.